Everyone's on.
Okay, we're live. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the pre-Shavuos Tikkun. Okay, we're live. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the...
Good to go.
Okay, we're ready to go. My IT people say we're ready to go. Okay, so first and foremost, welcome everybody to today's lecture series in honor of Shavuos. And as you know, that in every lecture series, in every holy thing, there's always a partner between Yisachar and Zavulun. And so I want to thank our sponsors, beginning with Eliezer Abramsky, who sponsored today's program in honor of his late mother, who passed away just 2 weeks ago because of COVID-19. And her name is Chaya Bas Doivber. And also to thank the Seneca Club for sponsoring it in honor of Fran's father, Tevya ben Yosef. So to wish that their neshamas, their souls have an aliyah, their souls go higher and higher and storm the heavens to bring an end to this terrible pandemic and bring about the coming of Geula, of healing and redemption and Mashiach now. This morning's topic is the holiday of Shavuos. To begin with the known concept that the Torah was given over 3,302 years ago. On Sinai, God came down, revealed himself. He gave us the 10 commandments. We all heard the words from God himself. And also the 7 Noahide laws for all the nations of the world. And from there came also the 613 mitzvos that we have in the Torah. Now, there is a machloikis, there's an argument between the Rabbanon, the rabbis, and Rabbi Yossi. What is the exact date of Matan Torah? The rabbis say it was Vav Sivan, the 6th day of Sivan. Rabbi Yossi says it is Zayin Sivan, the 7th day of Sivan. They all agree that on Shabbos, the Torah was given. However, the question is, what day of the month? In the Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, the Shulchan Aruch Rav of Admir Azokin, in chapter Tov Tzadik Dal, in chapter 494, it is that the halacha is that we agree that the Torah was given on the 6th day of Sivan. And that is the official date here in America, in the diaspora, and also in Eretz Yisrael, in the Holy Land of Israel, that Shavuot is celebrated on Zayin Sivan, on Vav Sivan, on the 6th day of the holiday of Sivan, on the 6th day of the month of Sivan. The question, however, comes to mind, and that is, there are 3 major holidays. One is Pesach, one is Sukkot, one is Shavuos. Yet, why is it that Pesach in the Torah is 7 days, the diaspora 8 days? Sukkot is also 7 days according to the Torah. However, Shavuos, which is one of the 3 major holidays and pilgrimages, is only 1 day according to the Torah. Why is Shavuos different than Pesach and Sukkot? Number 2, in the Torah, we find that Pesach has a date. Pesach is the 15th day of the month of Nisan. Similarly, Sukkot has a date. Sukkot is the 15th day of the month of Tishrei. Yet Shavuos has no date. What does the Torah say? The Torah says that you should count 50 days, starting the day after Pesach, and that then you shall have a holiday, the holiday of Shavuos. However, it does not say the date in the Torah. Why not? Why is there no date in the Torah for the holiday of Shavuos? Another interesting question. When we look into the Siddur, we find that when it comes to the holidays of Pesach and Sukkot, we say that this is Chag HaMatzah, it says there, it's the holiday of the matzah, Zman Cheruseinu. It is the time and the period of Cheruseinu, of our freedom. When it comes to the holiday of Sukkot, we say Zman Simchaseinu. It's the holiday, the time of our simcha, of our joy. Yet, when it comes to Shavuos, we also say Zman Matan Torah. It is the time of the giving of the Torah. However, in truth, it should have said Yom Matan Torah. It is the day of the giving of the Torah, because, as we said earlier, Shavuos is only one day. And when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, if you look into the Siddur and the Machzor, what does it say pertaining to Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah, the new year, which is only one day, it says Yom Teruah, the day of the blowing of the shofar. When it comes to Yom Kippur, it says Yom HaKippurim, the day of Yom Kippur. It says Yom, only one day. Based on this concept, when it comes to Shavuos, it should say also Yom Matan Torah, the day of the giving of the Torah. Yet we find that when it comes to the giving of the Torah, we say Zaman Matan Torah. It is the time of the giving of the Torah. So to understand all of these questions, a more important question is really what was and what is so special about the holiday of Shavuos. What happened on Shavuos? Why do we celebrate it year after year besides eating cheesecake and celebrating the giving of the Ten Commandments? As they tell the famous story that the Goldsteins were quarantined for 5 years. They never came out of their house. And one day they meet the rabbi. And they say to the rabbi, "Rabbi, how are you?" And the rabbi said to them, "How are you? I haven't seen you in 5 years." And they told the rabbi, "Rabbi, I know we were quarantined, but you should know we were keeping the 10 Commandments." And the rabbi said, "What do you mean you were keeping the 10 Commandments?" He says, "My wife kept 4 of them and I kept 6 of them." So what is the meaning of the 10 Commandments? And the greater question is, the Gemara says in the Tractate of Yuma, page 28, side A, and similarly in the Tractate of Kedushin, page Beis Amud Aleph, 82, side 1, it says that Umeinehen shel Aveseinu loy parsha yeshiva mehem. From the days of our forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, there was never a time that they were not in yeshiva. Avram Avinu zakein v'yoshev b'yeshiva haya. Avraham sat and studied Torah in the yeshiva. Yitzchak sat and became old and studied Torah in the yeshiva. And similarly, Yaakov Avinu, he sat and studied Torah in the yeshiva. Furthermore, the Mishnah tells us that Avram Avinu fulfilled the entire Torah, even before it was given, including the rabbis' mitzvos, the mitzvos of the rabbis. For example, Eidiv Tavshilin, to make an Eidiv to cook from Yom Tov to Shabbos, like we have this year, out here in the diaspora, and similarly even in Eretz Yisrael, because Shavuos is Thursday and Friday, you need to cook. Rather, Shavuos is a Thursday night, which is Friday and Shabbos. And therefore, you need to cook on Friday for the Shabbos. You need to make an Eidiv Tavshilin. This is a rabbinic halacha, rabbinic law. Avraham Avinu even fulfilled this mitzvah of Eidiv Tavshilin. If that is the case, that they knew the Torah, and they studied the Torah, and they fulfilled the Torah before the Torah was even given, over 430 years before the Torah was given, if that is the case, Why do we make such a big deal? What is the chidush? What is the novelty from the holiday of Shavuos? That we celebrate this day that God gave us the Torah and He gave the nations of the world on this day the 7 Noahide laws. And the answer is a threefold. There was a transformation in the giver of the Torah, a transformation in the receiver of the Torah, and a transformation in the Torah itself. Number one, pertaining to God. Number one, pertaining to the Noisen HaTorah. God Himself gave the Torah on Sinai, and He revealed Himself. And not only did He reveal Himself, He put His essence into the Torah. And that is the meaning of Anochi. Hashem Elokecha, I am God your Lord. Anochi, even though it's an Egyptian word, is an acronym for Ano, Nafshi, Kesavis, Yahavis. I, my essence, I put into the Torah. Up until then, Torah was only a spiritual intellect. It was a godly intellect. But God's essence was not in the Torah. What happened in Torah was God put His essence, Anochi, into the Torah. And therefore, if a person is thirsty for spirituality, if a person is spiritually yearning to connect with God, the only way one can quench their thirst is by studying the Torah. For Torah is not only an intellectual pursuit, but the way God put His essence into the Torah. This is the way we fulfill our desire to truly connect with God. So the only way we can reach essence, the only way we can reach this connection with God is through the study of Torah. It's Anochi. Another interesting point is that in the beginning of the Torah, of the 5 books of Moses, it begins with the word Bereshis. Bereshis bara, in the beginning God created. The question comes to mind, why does the Torah begin with the letter Beis, not an Aleph? We know that the letters of the Aleph Beis, not only does each letter give strength and energy, but the first letter, the Aleph, is not only first in number, but also first in greatness. And so one would think that the Torah should have began with the letter Aleph. And the answer is that when the first letter was used to create the world, when God first created the world in the beginning, the world was very physical and very hedonistic and very coarse. And therefore, this corporeality of the world was not a vessel to receive the Aleph of God's name. The Aleph of God's name, alluding to Alufei Shalolam, the master of the universe, and also the gematria of 1,000, implying a level beyond time and space. The world could not conceive and internalize this level of the Aleph. And so the world began with a Beis, and the Beis is also good. The Beis is bracha. However, on Shavuot, after the Jewish people going into slavery and after 49 days of refinement, now God reintroduced Himself to the world with the Aleph of Anochi, the letter Aleph, as it says in the Torah, today I bring to you the Anochi of Aleph of Anochi, and I place this Aleph into Brach, into the blessing of the Beis of Bereshis. So, returning to the initial thought, and that is, what is the novelty of Shavuos? What is the novelty of this holiday? The novelty is that God Himself, the essence of God, the Aleph of Anochi, has now permeated the Torah and permeated the world. Number two, it's not only a novelty in God's revelation, but it's also a novelty to us, the recipients of the Torah. And that is that once God introduced the Torah on Sinai, we have the ability, we have the koach to give a psak halacha. We have the ability to give a legal decision and a legal rendering in the Torah. In other words, till now, we had no right to say if this is kosher or not kosher. We had no right to say if you are allowed to do this or not allowed to do this. If two people come to court, the judge did not have a right to say you are right and you are wrong. But once the Torah was given, it also gave the individual who learns the Torah and becomes a legal rabbi and a legal judge the ability to give a psak, the ability to give a conclusion, a halachic rendering in the Torah itself. Thirdly, Shavuos accomplished that it transformed the Torah, that the Torah now has the power and now has the capacity to change the world. In other words, that the world should be consistent with the Torah. As we know, God gave us 10 commandments on Sinai, and God created the world with 10 utterances of speech. Why 10 and 10? Because the objective was that these 10 utterances of speech, which permeate the world and create the world every moment anew. For if God would stop creating the world for one moment, the world would return to nothingness. Now that God brought the 10 commandments onto the world, these 10 commandments now pervaded the 10 utterances of speech. And therefore, the entire world has the capacity and has the potential to be consistent with Torah. As we know that God brought a flood on the world at the time of Noach, because the world was debased, it was corrupted, it was perverted. However, by giving the Torah onto the world on Sinai, God gave us the power. And in particular, God gave the power into the Torah. He injected the Torah with this power to now infiltrate and pervade the entire world, that the world should be consistent with Torah. In other words, in the Torah, it says, Lo tirtzach, that one should not murder. This is not only a commandment, but it's also a promise that the day will come that the world will be in a state of peace and harmony, that the world will be in a state where no one will want to murder one the other. So this was the objective of Sinai. Not only that God put himself into the Torah, not only one should learn the Torah and have the ability to render halachic decisions, but that the Torah itself should now become at peace with the world, and that the world should run and live consistently with the ways of the Torah. And this is what the Rambam says, that when Mashiach will come, that when Mashiach will come, the world will be in a state that is consistent with the Torah, and therefore there'll be no hunger, there'll be no war, there'll be no jealousy, because of the fact that the Torah will now pervade the entire world. As it says in the Zohar, the Holy Zohar says that in truth, the blueprint of the world was the Torah. God looked into the Torah and he created the world. However, even though God created the world through Torah, and the Torah is the blueprint of the world, yet at that time, Torah and world were two opposites. They were mutually, totally different. They were mutually exclusive. However, once now God gave us the Torah on Sinai, and therefore God came down to the mountain, Moses went up to God, there was a fusion of heaven and earth. This gave the ability for Torah and world to become mutually symbiotic. And the day will come when everything in the world will be truly inconsistent with Torah, will truly be consistent with the way God wanted from the beginning of creation. So now to answer the questions that we began with. We began with the questions. Number one, why is Shavuos one day? The answer is, when we say Shavuos is one day, it doesn't only mean one, that it has a second day, but rather one as being unique. It is truly above all the other days. When it comes to Pesach and Sukkot, the revelation of God is within the world, and therefore it permeates the 7 days of the week, implying that it has a connection with the attributes of creation. However, pertaining to the holiday of Shavuos, here we say that God himself, the essence of God, came down to the world, and therefore, when it comes to Shavuos, it's beyond time and space. It's beyond the physical world, and therefore it's represented by being a one-day holiday, implying that it's truly beyond the physical everyday world. Number two, it's a holiday that is dateless. It doesn't have a date. Why not? So on a halachic level, this is to teach us that the holiday of Shavuot is every day of the year. One may think, just like Pesach is 7 days and Sukkot is 7 days, so one should only celebrate Shavuot on the 6th day or the 7th day of Sivan. 1 day a year, you learn Torah. The rest of the year, you don't have to learn Torah. Comes along the holiday of Shavuot, and we find the Torah gives no date. It's dateless. Why? Because you have to learn Torah every single day. But on a more mystical level, it comes back to the original idea that Shavuot is truly beyond time and space. It cannot be relegated or regulated to one specific day, because a day is only 24 hours. A day is a limit. Here, God himself, the essence of God, that is not confined to time and space, came down to the world. And so it is beyond the date, is beyond time and beyond space. Furthermore, we asked a third question. Why do we say Zaman Matan Torah? It is the period of the giving of the Torah. We should say Yom Matan Torah. It's the day that God gave us the Torah. Here too, we could understand it on two levels. First and foremost, on a more halachic level, in the time when they used to sanctify the new moon in the Bezdin based on witnesses, it was possible that Shavuos actually fell out not only on the 6th day of the month of Sivan, but it was possible that Shavuos fell out also on the 5th day of Sivan or the 7th day of Sivan. Even today, it's possible that Shavuos falls out on a different day than the calendar. For example, someone who travels from Japan to New York, that person would have to keep Shavuos 1 day earlier because of crossing over the date line. So when it comes to Shavuos, the Torah says you have to count 50 days from the morrow of Pesach, from the morrow of Shabbos. It means it's a personal holiday, and when you reach day 50, that's your Shavuos. And therefore, it's possible even today, when we have an established calendar, that you should celebrate Shavuos on a different day. And therefore, it's not Yom Matan Torah, it's not the day that God gave us the Torah, because that day is only the 6th day of Sivan. In contrast to when you are celebrating it, it's a different time. And therefore, we say Zman Matan Torah. It's a period over a few days when possibly one can celebrate the holiday of Shavuos. On a deeper level, Shavuos is a time that unites two opposites. On one hand, it's the essence of God, beyond time and space. And on the other hand, it comes down onto a day on the 6th day of Sivan. And so you have the fusion here of beyond time in time. This, again, is not Yom Matan Torah. It's not 1 day. It's not 1 day. It's not limited to 24 hours. It's not limited to a specific time, because we are beyond the time. And so when it comes to Zaman Matan Torah, when it comes to the holiday of Shavuos, we don't say it's the day that God gave us the Torah. On the contrary, there's no 1 day that God can give us the Torah, because we are dealing here with infinity. We are dealing here with the essence of God that is beyond infinity, beyond the time and space. Rather, it's the fusion of infinity and finity together. Now that we explored these three concepts, to take it one step further, even though there is no date when the Torah was given, but we do know historically that the Torah was given on the 6th day of the holiday of, or the month of Sivan. The 6th day thus being Vav Sivan. This too demands a lesson and a message. The letter Vav, which is the gematria and the numerical computation of 6, the letter Vav has the graphic design as a ladder, a chute, a hook, which connects heaven and earth, implying that if a person wants to connect with God, if a person wants to connect with the essence, then they need to study the Torah. The Torah is the vav, the Torah is the hook. It's interesting to note that in a Sefer Torah and a Torah scroll that has Gan Parshiot, 53 Parshiot, the garden of the Torah. Gan means garden. All the Parshiot begin with the letter Vav, Ve'ela, Vayidaber, etc., etc. Besides 10. Besides 10 Parshiot do not begin with the letter Vav, but all the other 43 Parshiot begin with the letter Vav. Similarly, the Hasidic Bible, known as the Tanya Kadisha, the Holy Tanya, written by the Alter Rebbe. By Chassidim, this is called the Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah of Hasidism. And Likutei Amurim has 53 chapters. There too, all the chapters begin with the letter Vav besides 10, implying 10, the 10 commandments that God gave on Sinai, thus goes and permeates all the 53 parshias of the Torah, and from there continues into the 60 tractates of the Mishnah and the 32 tractates of the Talmud, and then the infinite amount of midrashim and mefarshim of Rishonim and Acharonim, of the rabbis, with the Rambam and the Ramban and Rashi, etc., and the Alphas and the Maral and the Mashal, all the great leaders, down to the Taz and to the Shach and Taz and to the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbe himself and the great leaders like Rabbi Moshe Feinstein and other great codifiers of all the generations. The Torah continues from this Vav, representing and connecting to the future generations, connecting the past and the future together. And so this is the letter Vav, to connect this generation with the previous generations and to carry on the Torah onto the next generation. So this is the Vav of Sivan, the 6th day of Sivan. The actual date when God gave us the Torah, even though it is not mentioned in the 5 books of Moses. Another interesting halacha that we find on Shavuos that is different than the other major holidays of Pesach and Sukkot. Besides Shavuos being only one day according to the Torah, the holiday of Shavuos is a holiday that one is not allowed to fast. You're not allowed to have a tainit on the holiday of Shavuos. Now, what does that mean? What it means is as follows. If a person, for example, has a bad dream Friday night, and he is disturbed, he is upset, he is confused, Shabbos day, you are allowed to fast. If a person has a bad dream Pesach night after the Seder, eating too much matzah and consuming too much maror, and he has a bad dream, he's allowed to fast the following day. This is called a tainis cholim. This is called a fast day to remove a bad dream. But when it comes to the holiday of Shavuos, even if you eat too much cheesecake and you have too much cheese blintzes and you have a bad dream on the night of Shavuos, says the Shulchan Aruch, and the Alter Rebbe brings it down in chapter Tov Tzadik Dalit, chapter 494, that on this holiday of Shavuos, one is not allowed to fast a tainis cholim. And the question comes to mind, why not? The Alter Rebbe goes on to say that the day of Shavuos is a holy day and a joyful day. And therefore, to quote, Tzarich lechel v'lesmayach boy, one has to eat and be joyous, laharois, to show the world and show oneself, shenoyach umukubal, that you are satisfied and you are happy and you receive the Torah. LiYisrael, Yom Shnitna B'ya Torah, for this is the day that God gave us the Torah. And we are so happy and we are so joyful that because of this, we are not going to fast on Shavuos even for a bad dream. But let's take it a step further. What is the reason behind it? Why is it that when it comes to Shabbos, you could fast for a bad dream? Why is it when it comes to Passover, Pesach, you could fast for a bad dream? Yet when it comes to the holiday, Shavuot, whoa, here we say, no, one is not allowed to fast for a bad dream. What is the concept of a dream? What is the idea of a chalom, a dream? We know that in a dream, one can see opposites. The slave can become the king, and the king can become the slave. The rich man can become the poor man, and the poor man can become the rich man. So the idea of a chaloim is that it unites two opposites, and things that are false can become true. The same is true in life. We can have a chalom. We could be awake, walking in the street, but we could live a dream. We could live with confusion. On one hand, it could be Shabbos, and we know it's Shabbos, and we just made the kiddush, and we just ate the challah, and we had the delicious gefilte fish and the delicious chicken soup. You had delicious roast beef, portobello mushrooms. You just drank the finest wine. You made l'chaim on delicious single malt scotch. And you're singing also Zemirot, all the songs, Anyanahai. And right after the meal, you go and you turn on the TV. Right after the meal, you go into a car. Right after the meal, you turn on a light. You're breaking the Shabbos. It's a chaloim. There's a confusion here. There's a disconnect between the reality, which is Shabbos, and your actions that you are participating. So the question comes to mind, how do we connect the chaloim? How do we connect the reality with the dream? So when a person is in a state of confusion, that even though it's Shabbos, but his body doesn't feel it's Shabbos, but he can't enjoy the l'chaim of Shabbos. It's Shabbos, but he can't enjoy the gefilte fish of Shabbos. Here we say, fine, you are allowed to fast, and through the fast, God will give you the strength to overcome this confusion, and you will be able to see clear that Shabbos and your meal and your actions are truly one and consistent. However, when it comes to Shavuos, we say that when it comes to Shavuos, even if you have a bad dream, you need to eat on that day. You have to celebrate. Why? Because Shavuos is so powerful that we celebrate how God came down to the world, how God's essence came and permeated the world. As we know, Moses went up to Sinai and God came down to the mountain. There was a fusion of heaven and earth. Before Sinai, before Shavuot, as the Medrash says, that Syria did not go up to Rome, and Rome did not go down to Syria. There was a separation of church and state. There was a separation between heaven and earth. However, Shavuos was a fusion of God and humankind, spirituality and the mundane. They both became one. And because of this, we are happy and we are celebrating and we are testifying to the fact that Torah and God and spirituality is not something only for the synagogue, only in the mind, only in the psyche, but it has no apparent connection to the everyday world. On the contrary, Shavuos reminds us that the physical and the spiritual are truly one. And this is also echoed in the Medrash, that it says, when God gave us the Torah on the holiday of Shavuos, it says, Tzipar leitzavach, that the birds did not chirp and the cows did not moo, and there was no echo, but rather the voice of God came from all four corners of the world. Why does the Medrash tell us this? Why does the Zohar tell us this? Why does the Tanchuma tell us this? Why is it so important that we know these details? The answer is that an echo represents the voice bouncing back when the wall does not want to accept the teaching, does not want to accept the word of God. So there's an echo because the wall pushed out this teaching. It pushed out this lesson. Says the Torah, you should know that on the holiday of Shavuos, God came down to the world. There was no echo because God's world became our world. And God's word permeated the physical. And this is exemplified, and this is verified, and this is underscored by the fact that we eat cheesecake on Shavuos, that we eat food on Shavuos, to say that eating can also be holy, that food is also permeated with the word of God. And so we make a bracha and we thank God for the food, and we know that God continues to vivify that food. And by eating that food and using that energy of that food to make the world a better place, to use that energy to pray, and to use that energy to do a favor for another person, and to use that energy to give tzedakah and charity. Through that, we are testifying that the physical and the spiritual are truly one. I would like to end with one last thought, and that is, I recently published my latest book, Parsha Mnemonics. And in this book, I talk about the actual amount of verses in every parsha. And let me expound on this for a moment. We know that God dictated to Moshe every parsha and every word of Torah, word by word. And therefore, every word in the Torah is actually the word of God. And God also divided the Torah into the parshiot. He also divided the Torah into the various different portions. In other words, if you open up a Torah scroll, you will not find punctuation. However, at the same time, God did divide the chapters and the parshiots accordingly. The parsha that we read this week, in other words, even though this Shabbat in America is going to be Shavuot, we're going to read a different reading of the Torah. In Israel, they're going to read the parsha of Nasai. And there are many, many people that have the Minhag Yisrael, the Jewish custom, to recite every day a portion of Chumash with Rashi, known as Chitas. So what are we learning this week? We are learning the portion of Nasai. Nasai, by the way, is the largest parsha in the entire Torah. It has 176 psukim, 176. The question is, why is Nasai the largest parsha in the whole Torah? And what is the meaning of 176? Furthermore, the largest psalm in the book of Psalms is Kuf Yutes, which is chapter 119, which happens to be the psalm of the Rebbe this year. And in this Psalm 119, you also have 176 pesukim, 176 passages. And then you have a Gemara. The Gemara Baba Basra is the largest Gemara in pages. The Gemara Baba Basra has 176 pages, 176 blat. Comes the question to mind, what is the connection between the Chumash that has 176 psukim in Nasai and the Tehillim and the Gemara? And I explained this in the book of Parsha Mnemonics, and I believe with God's help that this is the answer. Torah is the concept of machshava, thought. Tehillim, which is prayer, is dibur, speech. The Talmud is ma'aseh, about action. It teaches us how to fulfill the Torah practically. As it says in Ethics of Our Fathers, that the world stands on three things: Torah, Avodah, or Gemilas Chasadim. The study of Torah, which is, of course, the portion of Nasai, the 5 books of Moses. Avodah, prayer, represents Tehillim. And Gemilas Chasadim, acts of tzedakah, charity and kindness, represents the tractate of Baba Basra, which has the laws of tzedakah in it. And as we know that all mitzvos, all physical deeds are represented by the mitzvah of tzedakah. And therefore, says the Torah, when it comes to all of these three things, there's 176 pesukim and pages. Why? Because if you look into the Tehillim, Psalm 119, Kuf Yutes, and it has there 176 Pesukim, each one of these 176 is divided up into the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the Chav Beis Oisiot. And each letter is repeated 8 times in each passages. The number 8 represents infinity. The number 8 represents Geula, redemption. And that is why we are told that when Mashiach will come, he will play the kinor, the harp of 8 strings. 7 is nature, 8 is beyond nature. And so the Torah is hinting to us that in truth, even though there's a limited amount of letters to the Torah, 304,508 letters in the 5 books of Moses, and even though there's a limited amount of words in the Tehillim, and even though there's a limited amount of words in the Talmud, in truth, it is infinite. It is 8. It is beyond time and space. And this is the connection with the Pasha of Nosoi that we read this Shabbos. And again, we read every day this week through the Minhag Yisrael, the custom of reciting the Chumash with Rashi for the day. The word Nosoi means to lift up. Nosoi esroish, to lift up your head. What does it mean to lift up your head? Your head is the highest part of the body already. And this is exactly the point the Torah is making. The head is used for intellect, but you can also use your head for other types of intellect. Says the Torah, Nosoi esroish, lift up your head. Use your head for the most important intellect. Use your head to learn the Torah. Use your head to have pleasure from God's word. Not only learn the Torah because you're forced to learn Torah. Not only pray because you're forced to pray. Not only give tzedakah because you have to give tzedakah, but rather see the pleasure in it. See the goodness in it. See the purpose in all of these things. There's a beautiful story that I want to conclude with. And that is Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, Yidizah Refuah Shalema, was once lecturing in New York, and he was going to Far Rockaway to give one of his lectures. The yeshiva there heard that he was coming. So one of this boys' schools called up his secretary and said, look, I understand that Rabbi Steinsaltz will be in our neighborhood today. It would be a great honor for us and the children if he would come and address them for a few moments. The secretary said, give me a moment. I will talk to Rabbi Steinsaltz. I will see what he says. Rabbi Steinsaltz responded and he said, okay, on the condition that all the children will already be in the auditorium sitting. And so when he comes, he need not wait. And he will go up to the stage and he will say a few words to the students. And so, kach have, that's what happened. On the way to his official lecture, he stopped off at this yeshiva at the boys' school, and the children were waiting in the auditorium, and he came in from the back of the auditorium. Rabbi Steinsaltz walked up the steps onto the stage. He took the microphone into his hand and he said the following: make your teachers crazy. That's all he said, those 4 words, make your teachers crazy. He put back the mic, he walked off the stage. The principal heard this, he ran over to the mic, he grabbed the mic, and he started to say the following: children, you should know that Rabbi Steinsaltz did not mean what he said, and therefore do not take him literally. Rabbi Steinsaltz was already halfway out of the auditorium. He turned around, he walked back up the stage, he grabbed the mic, and he said as follows: many times I have been misquoted. Many times I have been said that you did not mean it literally. You should know I mean it literally. Literally, you should make your teachers crazy. What do I mean? When it comes to the study of Torah, don't take it dogmatically. Don't take it because it says so. Try to understand it intellectually. There is a deeper reason for every word, for every letter in the Torah, for every crown in the Torah. There are levels and pillars and mountains of interpretations. So therefore, Nosoi Yesroish, lift up your head, learn the Torah, enjoy the Torah. And so to wish everybody a happy Shavuos, Kabbalas HaTorah b'simcha b'pnimius, to truly accept the Torah and receive the Torah with tremendous joy, and to internalize the Torah in a very personal way. And as you know, that even though the Torah was given only once on Sinai, and God will never give us a second Torah. However, as the Arizal tells us, these days are remembered and actualized. Every year on Shavuos, God actually comes down to the mountain once again. And once again, he gives us the Torah. Each one of us personally, as it says, Anochi Hashem Alikecha, I am your Lord. I am your Lord in the singular. For God is speaking to every single one. For God is speaking to all humankind every single day. Anochi Hashem Alikecha, I am God your Lord. If you need something, talk to me. I am here for you. I care about you. Imoy Anochi B'tzara, I am together with you in your pain. I am together with you in your difficulty. I am together with you in your quarantine. And therefore, every year on Shavuos, God once again comes down to the mountain. God once again solidifies this connection. However, as the Rebbe explains, that this revelation every year is greater than the year before. It is more powerful than the year before. And therefore, this year we can accomplish things that we could not accomplish last year. This year we could understand Torah like we never understood it before. So to wish everybody Kabbalas HaTorah b'simcha b'pnimius, thank you for joining, and stay tuned very soon for the next class starting at 12 o'clock. If there are any questions, we are happy to take questions at this time. Do you have any questions?
Write in the question.
Okay. So someone asked, why can't I see God? So one answer is that a human person you can see, because that person is small and finite. The fact that you cannot see God tells us how big he is. He's so giant that you can't see him. In other words, if you walk very close to the wall, you can't even see the wall. It's right in front of you. Only by stepping a few feet back can you see the wall. If you go over to a big, giant elephant, you cannot see it's an elephant. All you see is the color gray. By stepping back, you can see it's a big, giant elephant. And the same is true with Almighty God. God is infinite. We are standing right in front of him. You cannot see God. Only by standing far away can you see him. Now, that's almost impossible. Another answer is that to see God on Sinai, we had to count 49 days. In other words, we had to prepare ourselves. You can't just say, God, show yourself to me. If we work on ourselves, and if we prepare ourselves, and if we study the Torah, and we become better people, more refined people, we will have the zechut, we will have the true merit to see Almighty God. Any other questions? You can type it at this time if you have a question. Okay. If there are more questions that come in, we will answer it throughout the day. And again, thank you all for joining. We wish you blessing and success, and we'll see you in an hour.